When my friend Dom finally hit 21, he decided there was only one proper way to celebrate. He planned a trip to Las Vegas with our closest group of friends. There were 6 of us in total. We booked 3 rooms at the Gold Coast Hotel and Casino, about a 5-minute walk from the Strip, with 2 guys in each room. I ended up sharing a room with Joey. Our flight touched down around 5 in the evening, and by the time we grabbed our bags, checked in, and unpacked a little, it was already close to 7. Since we are all from the East Coast, we made it a point to stop at In-N-Out for dinner. None of us get that back home, so it felt like part of the Vegas experience. After eating, we wandered around and eventually found ourselves inside the Bellagio Casino. The place was enormous, almost overwhelming. Before long, we naturally broke off into smaller groups. Joey and I drifted toward the slot machines, while 3 of the others settled at blackjack tables. I honestly have no idea where the 6th guy disappeared to. When I say Joey and I were playing slots, I mean we were barely playing. We would press the button every few minutes, mostly just to justify sitting there. Our real focus was on the complimentary shots the cocktail waitresses kept bringing around. We were trying to enjoy ourselves without blowing $1,000 on the first night. After a few rounds of shots, we walked over to the blackjack tables to watch our friends lose money in real time. We stayed there about an hour before deciding to head out and walk to Lily Bar and Lounge. Not even halfway there, I instinctively patted down my pockets to check for my phone and wallet. That is when my stomach dropped. My wallet was not in my back pocket. I felt that quick rush of panic and asked everyone if they remembered the last time I had it. No one could say for sure. I told them to wait while I ran back to the Bellagio to retrace my steps. They did not want to stand around, though. Joey handed me his room key and told me to check our hotel room if it was not at the casino. The other 5 kept walking toward the bar while I sprinted back. As I ran, I felt defeated. Losing my wallet on the first night would ruin everything. No ID meant no bars, no clubs, and a whole lot of explaining to do. I went back through the Bellagio, carefully retracing every step. I checked the slot machine seats, the floor around them, and even went to Lost and Found. Nothing. My last hope was our hotel room. By the time I reached the Gold Coast, I felt sick with worry. I rushed through the lobby and up the stairs to the 2nd floor. At the door, I swiped Joey card. The reader flashed red. For a second, I thought it might be damaged. I wiped it against my shirt and tried again. This time it beeped and flashed green. Inside, I tore the room apart. I dumped my suitcase onto the bed, ripped through the sheets even though we had not slept in them yet, and checked under both beds. I searched the desk, the television stand, every surface in sight. It was nowhere. I collapsed onto the bed, fighting back the urge to cry. Then I decided to call the front desk and ask if anyone had turned in a wallet. The phone rang several times before a woman answered. I explained the situation and asked her to check Lost and Found. She put me on hold for a minute. When she came back, she asked for my name. Apparently people lose wallets in Vegas constantly. I gave it to her. Then she said something that made no sense. She asked if she had just spoken to me at the front desk when I came down, asking what room number I was staying in. I was confused. She said it had been within the last 15 minutes. That was impossible. I had been gone from the hotel for almost 2 hours. I told her I was coming downstairs and hung up, but a strange thought crossed my mind. What if someone else had my wallet and used it? Before leaving, I checked the closet. It was empty. Then I looked at the bathroom door. It was closed. I grabbed the handle, took a breath, and pulled it open, half expecting someone to be standing there. The bathroom looked empty at first. I flipped on the light and glanced at myself in the mirror. That is when I noticed it. A shadow behind the shower curtain. The outline of a person, clearly taller than me. My heart pounded. I did not want to risk getting attacked. I backed out of the room and immediately called the hotel number from my phone, asking them to send security up right away. Within 5 minutes, 2 large security guards came down the hallway. I pointed at our door and told them there was someone in our bathroom who had taken my wallet. I unlocked the door for them. Standing in the middle of the room was a man in his 30s, wearing a mask over his face. His hands were raised. The guards escorted him out and searched him. They found my wallet in his pocket. He did not have any weapons, thankfully. The police were called, and he was arrested. He admitted that he found my wallet outside the hotel, went to the front desk pretending to be me, asked for my room number, and then let himself in. No one was hurt, but it still shakes me to think how much worse it could have been. If I had pulled back that shower curtain myself, things might have ended very differently. My friends barely believed the story until security confirmed it later that night. After that, the rest of the trip went on like nothing had happened. A few years ago, I went to Las Vegas with 3 friends, and we stayed at Bally's Hotel. The place used to be the MGM Grand until November 21st, 1980, when a devastating fire broke out. It started from a refrigerated pastry display case inside one of the first-floor restaurants. The flames spread into the casino, and thick smoke rose into the hotel tower, killing 85 people from smoke inhalation. We had read about the tragedy while browsing reviews before booking. Still, that was 4 decades ago, so we figured it would not really impact our stay. In fact, the room rates were noticeably cheaper than other similar hotels that weekend. What I failed to notice in those reviews were the repeated mentions of strange paranormal experiences. Several guests claimed to see or hear unexplained activity, even down in the casino. The most common complaint was a strong smell of smoke or something burning, especially on the higher floors, even when no one nearby was smoking. I had not seen any of those comments before we arrived, so none of that was on my mind the first night. On our second night, we visited a couple of casinos, grabbed dinner, and then went back to the room to regroup before heading out again. On the way, we stopped at a liquor store and bought some alcohol so we could loosen up before the club. We spent about 30 minutes to an hour drinking in the room before calling an Uber to Omnia nightclub, which was close by. By the time we arrived, the alcohol was definitely hitting me, and this is where my memory starts to blur. I clearly remember standing in line outside the club for at least half an hour. My friend Alec was chatting with a group of girls ahead of us. The next thing I distinctly recall is being inside at the bar with my friends trying to order drinks. I have scattered flashes of being on the dance floor, but aside from that, I was completely blacked out. The night only became slightly clearer once I left the club, though my friends later told me I left on my own. Somehow, I made it back to the hotel and up to our room on the 17th floor. From that point forward, my memory is sharp. I was sitting on the edge of the bed with my head buried in my hands, waiting for the room to stop spinning, when I heard what sounded like a child coughing in the hallway. I forced myself up and looked through the peephole, thinking maybe someone was choking or in trouble. I did not see anyone. I opened the door anyway. The hallway was completely empty. Standing there made me feel even worse, so I went into the bathroom and threw up. After that, I felt a bit more stable and crawled into bed. It was sometime after 3 in the morning, and none of my friends had returned yet. Then I heard the coughing again. It sounded like a young boy, the same sharp, dry cough as before. I did not feel like getting out of bed a second time, so I ignored it and tried to fall asleep. Out of nowhere, a piercing alarm began blaring, accompanied by a flashing red light. It was the smoke detector. Each time the red light blinked, it illuminated the corner of the room. In those flashes, I could see what looked like a person standing there. The figure resembled a young boy facing toward the door. I stared, trying to figure out if I was imagining it. On the 4th flash, Panic took over. I screamed and scrambled backward off the bed onto the floor. I did not know if I believed I was about to be attacked or if I was witnessing something supernatural. It felt like sleep paralysis mixed with a vivid hallucination. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the figure was gone. I lay there breathing heavily, trying to calm myself and convince myself that I had just been seeing things. About a minute later, the smoke alarm shut off on its own. My heart continued pounding for the next 10 minutes as I sat upright in bed, scrolling on my phone and trying to reach my friends. They finally returned around 4 in the morning. I chose not to mention what had happened because I did not want to sound like a drunken idiot who had imagined the whole thing. The following day, I started researching the hotel and reports of supernatural activity. What unsettled me even more was reading accounts from other guests who claimed they had heard a young boy coughing, specifically on the 17th and 18th floors. After that, I did not want to spend another night there. Thankfully, it was only a 3-night trip. In 2018, my friends and I rented an Airbnb in North Las Vegas so we could attend the Electric Daisy Festival, an EDM music festival. It was my first time ever going to something like that. I am not even into EDM, and I do not use hard drugs. Still, I went along with 3 of my friends who love that scene. I will call them Jess, Marissa, and Nicole. Jess had a connection in Vegas, a dealer she planned to buy Molly from before the festival. The event starts late in the evening and runs through the night. So earlier that first day, we just drove around Vegas looking for ways to pass the time. At one point, Jess left while we were eating to meet up with her contact and pick up the Molly. After she came back, we returned to the Airbnb to get ready. That meant putting on our outfits. If you know anything about music festivals, especially EDM ones, girls tend to wear the most revealing clothes possible. It was completely new territory for me. I actually needed help from my friends just to pick out something to wear. When we called a Lyft to head to the racetrack where the festival was being held, Jess handed each of us a small baggie with our share of the Molly. I was extremely nervous. The only drug I had ever tried before was weed, if that even counts. The ride felt quick, and Jess told us the Molly would probably start working about 45 minutes after we took it. By then we were standing in line, waiting to get inside. After a while, my friends said they were already feeling it, but I felt almost nothing. I started to think I had not taken enough. So I pulled out the baggie I had smuggled in and took a bit more. For the next hour, we danced while the sun slowly set. As the sky darkened, the lights from the stages and carnival rides lit up the entire place. Eventually, I could tell the Molly was hitting hard, and I began to trip. The combination of flashing lights, pounding music, and the intense rush from the drug felt surreal. But that feeling quickly shifted when I realized I had taken way too much. I started losing my sense of direction, and before I knew it, I was separated from my friends and completely lost in the crowd. At some point, a guy approached me and started talking. I must have asked him for help finding my friends, because he told me he knew where they were and would take me to them. I followed him through the crowd, holding his hand until we reached an area closer to the back. I asked where we were going. He said he knew where Jess was. The fact that he said my friend's name made me think he was telling the truth. Then he suggested I call Jess and handed the phone back after speaking to her. I dialed Jess and gave him my phone. Within seconds, he was talking. He stayed on the line for about a minute, then hung up. He told me that Jess and the others had gone back to the hotel because one of them felt sick. He said he would take me there. I stood there completely out of it and agreed. He ordered an Uber. Once we were inside, he asked for my number. I gave it to him because I was too intoxicated to notice anything suspicious. Then I glanced at the Uber driver screen and saw that the destination was 15 miles away. That is when reality started to break through. Why would he say my friends went back to the hotel when we were not even staying at a hotel? We had an Airbnb. I asked the driver where we were headed. I do not remember his exact words, but whatever he said made it clear we were not going to the Airbnb. I asked the driver to turn around. The guy beside me suddenly claimed he was my boyfriend and that I was just very drunk and needed to get home. I started screaming that he was not my boyfriend and that I had just met him. After a tense moment, the driver believed me and pulled over, forcing the guy out of the car. I burst into tears and asked the driver to take me back to the festival so I could find my friends. He told me re-entry was not allowed, so instead he drove me back to the Airbnb. He waited until I entered the code and got inside safely before leaving. Once inside, I began frantically calling and texting my friends until one of them answered. They could not hear me well over the noise at the festival, so I typed everything that happened into our group chat. Jess left the festival early and came back to stay with me, while Marissa and Nicole stayed out much later. Somehow I slept deeply that night. The next morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls and several messages from the guy who had likely tried to kidnap me. One text read, "Hey, did you get back okay? Where are you? I will come help you get to your Airbnb." Then another said, "Honestly, screw you for causing a scene in front of the Uber driver and making me look like some kind of rapist. It is obvious now that he never knew my friends." He was never actually speaking to Jess. I probably mentioned her name when I asked him for help. That first experience with a hard drug clouded my judgment so badly that I nearly allowed myself to be taken somewhere by a stranger.